This edition of the Horse Racing Scoop podcast is dedicated to Medina Spirit, the 2021 Kentucky Derby winner. God rest his soul. If you got a hunch, bet a bunch. Back a horse and get paid. This is Danny Brewer, your favorite turf rider from Tennessee. Welcome to this edition of the Horse Racing Scoop podcast. On this show, we're going to talk about the Breeders' Cup, a little wrap-up on that. We're also going to mention another wonderful racehorse who wrapped his career up in 2021, and we're also going to look to the future and see what is ahead for this wonderful sport as we turn the calendar.
We know there were lots of top performances at the 2021 Breeders' Cup. Were there any ponies in particular that really stood out?
You know, you're absolutely right. There were some wonderful performances, but I'm going to say Knicks Go, the Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Now, Knicks Go is one of those wonderful racehorses. He's a great story. This year, 5 for 7. He won 4 in a row. His last 4 races he won. The Breeders' Cup Classic, it was a race where, you know, when you looked at the race, you thought, oh, I don't know if the front end speed can hold, because earlier in the day, a lot of the front end speed had collapsed. You know, they got out there running, which is what he loves to do. They got out there running. They were pressed, and they faltered. They could not carry the distance. This is a 1.25 mile distance. Knicks Go had never run a 1.25 miles. Okay, so there were huge questions about what's going to happen here. But Knicks Go came through like the champion that he is. You know, when I talked to Brad Cox post-race, this was just a couple of weeks ago when I visited Knicks Go, he said, you know, we worked Essential Quality early. This was before, you know, in the weeks leading up to the Breeders' Cup Classic. He said, we worked Essential Quality early. He always works first. I thought, man, I don't know if anybody can beat this horse. Essential Quality, top 3-year-old, you know, he's the man. So he said, and then Knicks Go worked. And I thought, there's a horse that can beat Essential Quality. So he knew Knicks Go was ready. And it's so wonderful to see a horse, or an athlete in this case, an athlete work so hard to achieve a goal, and then that goal come to fruition, and he does it on race day. And he flat did it on race day. 1.25 miles, 159 point, what was it? 159.57, just like 4/10 off of the track record, who was set by one of our favorites, Candy Ride. So at Del Mar, it was just a wonderful display. So Knicks Go, hats off to him. He's going to have one more race in his career, so we got one more chance to see Knicks Go go. He's going to be in the Pegasus in January at Gulfstream Park, and that will close out his career. So Brad Cox is excited about him. He's working great. I've talked to Brad. He likes where Knicks Go is at. And Knicks Go hopefully will continue to go one more time. But, man, if you go back and YouTube it and look at the Breeders' Cup Classic, and you will see one heck of a performance by Knicks Go.
He did not run in the Breeders' Cup, but we know Maxfield is a horse you have written about lately. What's the scoop on this guy?
Maxfield is one of the most magnificent horses, you know. Kind of a little bit unfortunate in his career path, but magnificent from beginning to end. 11 career starts, 8 wins, 2 seconds and a third. Every time in the top 3. Did you hear that? We said every time in the top 3. And he ran against really great horses. I mean, graded stakes I think in 9 or 10 of those races were graded stakes races. So 2 grade 1 wins. Maxfield injury hurt him during his 3-year-old year, because his 2-year-old year, he won the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, looked like $1 million. He's the Breeders. He's gonna go to the Breeders' Cup. He's going to win the Kentucky Derby. He's going to do all this great stuff. But then the injury bug bit him. And I give my hats off really to Brendan Walsh, his trainer. Brendan is a really neat guy. He's from Ireland, got a heavy Irish accent. I love talking to him because I love that Cork, Ireland accent that he has. But Brendan did a great job of maintaining this horse and keeping this horse nursing him back to health and getting him ready. And he had a wonderful campaign as a 4-year-old, which a lot of times you don't see that. You know, when horses do really good and they're young, a lot of times they whisk them off to the breeding shed, because that's where the money is. The big money is in the breeding. So, but Maxfield, fantastic effort. Now, here's what I'm going to say about Maxfield. Perhaps the greatest horse to run at Churchill Downs. 5 for 5 in his career at Churchill Downs. Five starts, 5 wins. This year, he became the first horse to win the Ali Sheba, the Stephen Foster, and the Clark, all in the same year. The only horse who's ever done that. Of course, the Clark, they've been running for 147 years, the same as the Kentucky Derby, and the Stephen Foster, they've been running it since 1982. The Ali Sheba, it's only like 19 years old, but still, in those years, over the last 20 years, no horse has ever won all 3 of those races, and that's the big 3 races for older horses. Maxfield, powerful, great stride, wonderful frame of a horse. Wonderful. He's just so intimidating looking. When you look at him, you're like, whoa. You saw him run a few times, and so you know what kind of monster he is. So, Maxfield, he will leave the sport as what I'm deeming, this hillbilly is deeming him as the greatest horse to run at Churchill Downs, as far as older horses are concerned. Because when you look at his career, I don't know how many horses have ran 5 times at Churchill in these stakes races that he has ran in and won 5 times the way he did. So I think that, Maxfield, wonderful horse. Sorry to see him go, but happy that he could go out the way he did because he deserved to go out on top. And his race in the Clark was very, very good. He ran against a very good field. Jose Ortiz, his jockey, got him out of the gate because he knew that, hey, Midnight Bourbon was going to get to the lead. He didn't want to let him get away. So it was a great game plan by Brendan Walsh and Jose Ortiz, and Maxfield executed it to perfection, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing to see that, once again, like we talked about Nick's Go, that great plan coming to fruition, and it did for Maxfield. He didn't get to run in the Breeders' Cup, but he did run in the Clark, and he was fantastic at Churchill Downs throughout his entire career. So hats off to Maxfield.
As we look towards Christmas and the new year, tell us what fans look for in the near future.
Well, I think that the day that you start thinking about the Kentucky Derby is the day after the Kentucky Derby. So for guys like me, so that's one thing. But of course, for the everyday horse fan and for all of the horsemen, really the push really becomes more to the forefront, and you start in earnest. Because so now, if you have that great 2-year-old or even that decent 2-year-old, you're dreaming about the Kentucky Derby. So you start preparations when the calendar turns to January. Then the prep races, the bigger prep races, they've already run some prep races for it, but the bigger prep races start when you're talking Derby and Oaks. There was a horse that just ran, and I'm going to throw this in here. There was a horse that just ran at Aqueduct. She's going to be one of my early Oaks favorites, Nest. She ran, and I've got some personal reasons for that, but Nest ran really good. Todd Pletcher trained. She ran really good, and she won the Demoiselle on this past Saturday, December 4th at Aqueduct. So anyway, but that's one of the things is Derby and Oaks. The push is on now, and you start thinking about it and you start getting your horse ready for that because it's the world's most famous race. That weekend is one of those things where everybody looks at that. Now, in the shorter term, we want to talk about Santa Anita, opening day at Santa Anita. That is a wonderful day of racing. It's December 26th, the day after Christmas. That's traditionally when they always start. That was back in 1935, I think, when Santa Anita opened. I need to do my homework on that, but they've always started it at that point in time. It's like the day after Christmas or Christmas Day. And so Santa Anita is a wonderful place, one of the most wonderful places on earth. But big stakes day, 6 graded stakes races that day, 3 grade 1s, 3 grade 2s. They're running the Malibu, they're running the La Brea, they're running the American Turf. It's really going to be a great day of racing. Unfortunately, there's one horse that won't get to run that day, and that's Medina Spirit. And he was scheduled to run there. Medina Spirit was going to run the San Antonio as a preparation for the Saudi Cup in February, and that was what he was going to do. Medina Spirit, the 2021 Kentucky Derby winner, unfortunately met his demise, and he passed away during training. He had a heart attack, and it was really, really a very sad day for racing to see Medina Spirit go away like that.
So I know Medina Spirit won the Kentucky Derby, but what do you think made him so special?
I think the thing about Medina Spirit that's really, really good especially for guys like me, is his will to compete. I talked to Bob Baffert. I've talked to him and he's very sad, understandably so. His whole barn, they're in a state of mourning right now. And like I said, Medina Spirit. I mean, hey, Kentucky Derby winner, and that gave Bob his record 7th Kentucky Derby win. His heart, Bob says, the thing about him was he was so game. He just loved to compete, and he loved to fight. And that was one of the reasons why I feel like Medina Spirit's his recipe for success was get out front and go. We're going to get out front and go. That's what we're going to do because that's who we are. And then when other horses come to us, we're not going to let them by. And that's what happened in the Kentucky Derby. That's how he won the Kentucky Derby. That's how he won the Shared Belief. That's how he won the Awesome Again Stakes. And now he didn't exercise that in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That was his last race, was the Breeders' Cup Classic. But he did finish second to Nick's Go. He was coming at the end. He just couldn't quite get there because Nick's Go was Nick's Go. But Medina Spirit finished ahead of every other 3-year-old. Hot Rod Charlie, Essential Quality, who are 2 very, very good 3-year-olds. He finished ahead of both of them in the Kentucky Derby and in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So his will to compete, his will to fight. The other thing is he was a $35,000 purchase. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means to me is it gives every horseman hope. It gives every guy like me hope that, hey, $35,000, I can buy a Kentucky Derby winner. I can get a horse like that for $35,000. Now, granted, he's the exception to the rule, and he's not, Authentic, who won it the year before, was a $350,000 purchase. There have been some of those horses that are $1 million purchases, but $35,000, and he did it. He did it. I mean, so that gives all of us hope, and so that's one of the great things about this sport is anybody can win. Anybody can win. You just have to get the right horse and the right combination with the right jockey and the right training and all that stuff. And hats off to the Baffert team because Bob he wasn't expecting to break the record this year. He was tied with 6. He wasn't expecting to break the record with this horse. We talked about it in depth before the race, and he didn't think he had the Derby winner, but he said, we're going to be ready and we're going to run our best race. We're going to run the best that we can. And by golly, the best was good enough on that day. And so, that gives everybody hope. So that's what Medina Spirit, so his spirit will live forever in that aspect, is because he's the guy that did it. He could get it done, and he did it. And so, my heart goes out to all of his connections and all those people, and we're dedicating this podcast to him because Medina Spirit, you represent all the goodness and one of the reasons why so many people, especially guys like me, love this sport is because of horses like you, Medina Spirit. Thank you so much for what you've done for everyone, and God rest your soul. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Horse Racing Scoop Podcast. Be sure and stay tuned in because we've got some other stuff coming up. Some exciting times are on the horizon. We'll be talking Saudi Cup, $20 million race. We said $20 million. We'll also be talking Dubai World Cup, and obviously we're going to talk Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks because those prep seasons will be heating up exponentially here as the calendar turns to 2022. For weekly updates and the latest and greatest in news and views on the wonderful sport of thoroughbred horse racing, check out my blog at horseracing.scoop.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stay tuned in for the latest and greatest on horseracing.scoop.com. And remember, if you got a hunch, bet a bunch, back a horse and get paid. Horse Racing Scoop would like to thank our sponsors, the wonderful folks at Anderson Wealth Planning, Dr. Automotive, HorseRacing24.com, and Horse Races Now.